Good evening. Welcome to the Adventurers Club of Los Angeles. My name is Rich Mayfield, member 1211. I'm your first vice president and programs chair this year. We're broadcasting every week live from the Adventurers Club. And tonight we have a special guest all the way from Tahiti, right?
Yes, that's correct.
Danee Hazama,
Yeah.
member 1014. Is that right?
Very good.
I got it.
Yes.
Right.
Wow, you
Good. So you're from
good.
Tahiti.
well, I'm actually from the States here, but I moved to Tahiti and have lived there for 24 years now.
Wow.
Yeah, so
That's
I'm
pretty
a
cool.
photographer over there and really into culture and Polynesian migration and everything. So that's my passion.
So we're here tonight to talk about your passion, and your passion and how it intersects with adventure is basically like cultural migration across the Pacific, right?
Right.
And the Pacific Islands, and how people did that back in the day, so to speak.
Yes, and similarities, how the migration, how the people brought their culture throughout the Pacific and so far away, and they're doing the same things, like earth ovens or the belief in the ancestors or whatever. So it's pretty amazing.
And throughout the course of your life, you've kind of like done these experiences, right? And so we're going to talk about some of those experiences.
So I try to go to the places and find out, like there's stone maraes or stone temples in Tahiti or Polynesia. Well, you can find those in Java too. So the migration basically went from Southeast Asia across to Polynesia, and then the voyagers and the people kept going all the way to South America and even back.
That's
so
phenomenal.
It's a pretty fascinating story.
Because I think when people think about that, they're like, how did these people jump in a canoe and get from this island to this island? So you actually did it, right? Is that what you're telling me?
Well, kinda.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had the opportunity to sail on Polynesian voyaging canoes and to learn a little bit about traditional navigation, celestial navigation with the stars and the nature. And it's really interesting. Nature has a lot to tell us, but all we need to do is listen.
Yeah.
Look and hear and feel. Smell too.
So I guess, you can read about it in a book or you can study it academically, but
True.
there's no better way to experience it than actually do it.
It's like playing basketball. You can read about, you just put it in the hoop, put the ball in the hoop, but it's not that easy.
Yeah. So how'd you get passionate about this? What was your first kind of experience or journey that you took?
I wanted to take a trip around the world, and my first stop was in the Pacific. And so I went to different islands, took freighters, just slept on deck, and I'd go to these islands and stay with the families, and then I'd go to another island, for instance, like the Marquesas. I'd be on a Copra freighter or something and get off when they would stop or dock and stay with some families, and then go to another island and then another one, and then I got really interested in the culture and everything. And then I met this one man who was an archaeologist, and I told him I was a photographer, and if you ever need somebody, jokingly, because I never thought he would say yes, that if you need a photographer for his excavation, let me know. So he called me, and I was on, and it was co-sponsored through Geographic. So it was really nice. So I spent like a couple months in Nukuhiva, Ha'atuatua, and in Wauka, in a place called Manahini. And we excavated and was with the physical anthropologist and archaeologist, and it was just an amazing time learning about the prehistory of the Polynesian. Yeah.
So that's what caught your. So where this was pretty early in your life. Was it before you came to the Adventurers Club, or?
When was it? Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. This was like. Yeah. No, it's about a little bit before the Adventurers Club, and then I got in. It was like in the early '90s or '90.
Yeah.
And then I think I was in the Adventurers Club in '92 or something, and served as a first VP like you, and
Yeah.
was kind of like an acting president because our president was gone a lot.
Yeah, out on adventure.
I guess.
That's the hard part, right?
So anyway, I got the call of duty.
That's the kind of the curse of Adventurers Club. If you're here, you're not out on adventure, right?
Yeah,
so I
that's
mean,
true.
you know, people have to take off every once in a while and disappear, get off the grid for a little bit.
So you know, I was on a board. I was a board member too, and so I paid my dues.
Yeah. And
In
now
more
you're
ways
back in
than one.
Tahiti. Now you're back in Tahiti picking up.
Yeah. No, I'm just joking. Yeah, it's so I'm having an interesting time in Tahiti and learning a lot, and it's a completely whole different way of life. Very different than how I grew up in the States and everything, and I like that.
Where did you grow up here?
Well, I was born in Pasadena, believe it or not.
Yeah.
And grew up in San Gabriel area, and you know, it was
California
when I look
native.
back, yeah, that's right.
And then and you joined the Army, right?
Yeah, I sure did. I was a volunteer, and I wanted to do something a little bit more exciting, so I joined a parachute outfit, 82nd Airborne, and it was really great just jumping out of airplanes and helicopters.
Yeah.
Yeah, had a few incidences, but I'm still here. I'm still alive.
You survived? Yeah.
Yeah. One time my chute got all trolled up in the canopy. They called it a cigarette roll. And usually I'm the last guy down because I'm so light, but I was the first one going down, and I saw everyone up, and I go, oh my gosh, you know. And then so they teach you to pull the cord and throw out your canopy, your reserve, and then it slowly goes, you know, the lines slowly go out. But, you know, it's like you're burning down and you're thinking very quickly. And so I said, you know, if I just throw my canopy out like that, reserve, it's just going to flop and, you know, will get caught in my legs or my feet. So what I did was I just, you know, I kind of threw it out, but they just say, you know, push it out. And then, you know, I just saw the reserve just going like this, unraveling, and all of a sudden, whoo, it just opened, and like, you
Thank
know,
God.
oh man, because, you know, you're going down pretty fast.
Yeah.
You know, and I don't know how many seconds per feet or whatever, but it's pretty exciting stuff.
Yeah.
You know, jumping out of the C-141s or jets, C-130 cargo planes, and the Hueys.
You jumped out of a Huey?
Yeah.
How is that?
Excuse me.
I heard jumping out of a helicopter is a different experience.
It is, because you just go straight down, and it's just that exhilaration, you know, as you drop. But like if you're in a C-141 or something, they have like a honeycomb shield. So because once you exit, it's just like a vacuum, and you just get thrown out like you wouldn't believe. It's like a jolt, you know.
Yeah.
And that's when you have a lot of problems, because if you don't exit right, you get all twisted up and trolling and everything.
Yeah. So you can't. They can't just kick you out of the plane. You actually have to.
Well,
have
I've seen
skill.
some people freeze in the door, and the jump master just kicked them in the rear and say, "Go," you know, and because it's holding us up, and we're just trying to get out and trying to, you know, hit the drop zone, because if we miss a drop zone, we're going to be in the trees or whatever.
Because you didn't have any control over those parachutes, right?
Well,
could
we
you
had the
steer
old
or what?
T10, and it wasn't, well, after we had a more rectangular parachute with toggles, but the old ones that we had, we just had risers, so we just had to climb the riser to turn the canopy. Yeah, it was old school, but...
But you could turn them a little bit, but it wasn't.
Oh,
very,
yeah. And I remember one time it was so cold and the wind was going, and when I came down, it was like I oscillated, and I just got, boom! I just got like a big judo flip or something.
Yeah.
And I literally got knocked out, and I just saw stars, and all of a sudden when I woke up, I was being drugged by the wind, but the canopy was open, and I tried to. They have a quick release where it releases the straps, and my fingers were so cold I couldn't release to to undo the parachute so I wouldn't be drugged. So luckily there's another man there saw me, and he ran and jumped on the canopy and collapsed it. So
Nice.
So I stopped, and it was like, wow. But it's
Lots
pretty
of crazy
cool.
experiences,
It's pretty
huh?
cool, yeah.
So do you remember how many jumps you had?
I had like 42, I think.
Yeah, and these are all like
42-ish.
combat jumps where you're like loaded
Well,
down.
it's
and-
training,
Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes you have all your gear 60 pounds.
Yeah.
I was like, during that time, maybe 135 or something. So
Yeah.
that's like, a little bit half your weight.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So you had to, you had to be pretty hardcore and
Yeah.
carry that load with your M16 and all that good stuff.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
So after the Army, did you kind of go? Did you go straight on this big trip to around the world, or was there?
No, it's just one of those things where you're working and you have your home, you got your cars and everything, and it's just like you want to do something else. Like there's more to life than just what society dictates what success is. So I wanted to travel, and for me, this was my life. So I kind of sold everything, and then I took off, and my first round was through the Pacific, and that's when I went to Tahiti and met the archaeologist guy and everything. Went to the Marquesas on freighters, and from there then came back and then went to Rarotonga, Samoa, Fiji, and I just kept going, jump island hopping to different places. And some places I would stop and work, and then go to New Zealand, and just kept going like that. It was like for, I don't know, over a year or so.
Wow.
Yeah, it was good.
So
Great
I want
experience.
to talk about some of these specific trips that you've been on, but I got to ask you. So you've been all over. What's your favorite island?
Well, all the islands.
Throw
of
all
course.
the other islands under the bus and just give us the favorite one. What's the best island out there?
Well, like I said, each island has a different flavor. It's like a person, a different face, a different personality. So I love them all. But I live in Tahiti, and I explore this area, a lot, and with the nature, and it's pretty nice. I like it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody's gonna say Tahiti's not a nice place to live, right?
Yeah, I guess.
How was it? How was Tahiti during COVID?
Well, I'll tell you, we had cases brought in from Europe, and so that we got locked down, confinement. We did all the things that the government asked us to do. Wore masks. We even had gloves at that time, and we had curfew. We had to be in by 9 o'clock.
Oh, wow.
All that. But anyway, we did what they asked, and everyone recovered. 0 deaths. We did it.
Wow.
And it was great. We slowly were trying to get back to normal. And the only thing was, of course, we're a touristic society, or, our business is tourism, and no tourists are coming in. So they had to open up internationally. So when we opened up, even though people were supposedly tested,
It's back.
they brought it back. So, it's like, it's kind of disappointing after all that we went through, and we zeroed out, and all that they told us to do, it worked. But if people,
You got to do it everywhere, like
but if a
worldwide,
couple
right?
people, yeah. But if some people, they don't do what they're supposed to do, then it's not going to work.
Yeah. So is there anything, when you go back to Tahiti now, do you have to quarantine, or what's the deal? Because you've been running around Southern California.
Okay, what I have to do is tomorrow, I leave Sunday back to Tahiti. So I have to take a COVID-19 test, a nasal test, 3 days before my flight. Then after I arrive in Tahiti, they give you another swab that you do yourself. 2 swabs, one for your nose and one for the inside of your mouth. And it's free. and you turn it in, and they test you, and if they call you, you better get back in, because then you're positive. But if they don't say anything, then you're good to go. But yeah, it was free. The test was free in Tahiti, but here in the States, you have to pay like a couple $100 just for a
Really,
nasal
it's a couple
test.
$100 for a nasal test?
Yeah, what's, you know.
That's expensive.
I know. What's
Someone's
going on
making
with
some
that?
money.
And then, but
We got to make money.
It's free. Yeah, well, that's the thing. You know, it's everything's, you know.
Yep.
A money society. You know, it's not like giving or. You know,
Yeah.
It's different. You know, it's.
So let's talk.
That's one thing.
So let's talk about some of these specific voyages or sojourns you went on. You've got a picture here that you gave us of you holding up the adventurer's flag. Tell us about this.
Oh, okay.
Where is this?
Well, like I mentioned, migration in the Pacific is one of my passions. So I read that there was a theory that there's a possibility that they came from Taiwan. And so I went there on and off for about 3 years.
To Taiwan.
To Taiwan, and visited the different tribes during that time. There was like 12 or so, and stayed in the villages and saw what they did, their ceremonies and all that. And surprisingly, I found cultural similarities of the indigenous peoples, what they do there, as they do in Tahiti or in Polynesia.
So you buy the theory?
Oh yeah, well now it's proven. Yeah, the
Oh, yeah?
DNA, yeah.
So they had a
DNA.
theory based on culture, and then when they did DNA checks,
Well, they
could see
did the
links.
DNA check and everything, but when I was there, I mean, you can see, since I live in Polynesia, you know,
You're like, oh
it's
yeah.
cultural, and then you go over there, yeah, they do that over there too, and it's like, wow, you know, it's very similar. So I took pictures, did expositions to share the knowledge, and so that's what I do.
And what was the most like unique? Because there's lots of things like, okay, so if I went to some place and said, hey, do you have a god? They're like, yeah, we've got a god. You know, okay,
Yeah.
so there's a similarity there, right? But what was the most like unique similarity that you're like, this is weird, this is highly specific?
Well,
That both these cultures had.
I think it probably would be like animism, which is like the belief in nature. And also, you know, they have the belief of the ancestor, the Tapuna, and they speak to the ancestor. They have offerings. In Taiwan, they have betel nut. In Polynesia, they have kava, you know, like for a ceremony to speak. And yeah, that was one thing that was really interesting. The same belief in the ancestor. Yeah. And they have totems. We call them tiki. Tiki's
Right.
here. And there's TC in South America. I don't know how exactly how you say it, but it's TICI. And they have totems that look very similar to the Marquesas.
Interesting.
Totem. Yeah. So you find all kinds of things like this, and it's just amazing.
Like
how
the actual imagery on the totems was
yeah,
similar.
Yeah, the same type of form, maybe different inscription, but you know, it's always like that, and just
that's kind of weird to see that. You're like,
yeah,
I've seen
because
this
it's
before,
so far
you know?
away, and you know.
Yeah. Now,
all the
in
way
terms
across
of
the
geographic
Pacific.
distance, what is that? Because the distance between the islands is vast in some cases, right?
Yeah, well, yes, you're correct, but then again, when you're voyaging, when we're going across to the Solomon Islands from Tahiti, some of the islands are like 5-8 days apart. So you sail and all of a sudden, boom, you hit an island. Sail and another island. So it's like there's like a chain of islands where you can see how the possibility how people migrated from one island to another because they were so close. You know, because there's so many islands in the Pacific.
But it's still 8 days away, right? So
Yeah.
how do you think? How do you know that there's an island there? I mean, this is the fundamental question, right? Like, if you're going out, or do you think, or there are people that would just go out for like 10 days, and if they didn't hit anything, they'd come back, and they're like, okay, so there's nothing down that bearing, let's try this one.
Yeah. Well, people go out and they go fishing, you know.
Uh-huh.
They stay out for a while. Yeah, it's just a matter of exploration.
Yeah.
Sure.
So now this another adventurers club.
Okay, yeah, this
represent-
was another expedition that I did, and this was in the island of Aao, which is the northernmost island of the Marquesas, and I had the opportunity to stay there and have like a Robinson Crusoe experience. You always kind of wonder, what it's like to be on a island, you know, like castaways and everything. So I just wanted to have that feeling, and wow, it was pretty amazing.
So you had these guys drop you off on a deserted
Yeah,
island?
right.
And
Then
how,
they came back,
how long
yeah.
did they came back? That's good.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well,
someone
yeah,
came
really,
back.
thank you.
If you really want the experience, you got to build a
Yeah.
canoe, right?
Yeah.
But these guys,
Yeah,
so
true.
they dropped you off. How long were you out on this island
It
for?
was about a week or so, but it was
Yeah.
enough to find out your needs for always looking for food.
You didn't bring any food?
Always. No.
Water?
Water, yeah.
You brought water?
Of course, yeah.
Yeah.
And I remember just waking up at night and going on the stones or the rocks on the shore and just hitting crabs to eat and everything.
Yeah.
I dug a hole in the sand and I put coconut fronds on the bottom and put the fronds on top so the bugs, you know, for the bugs and everything. And yeah, it was, and then sometimes I'd sleep underneath the rocks, like the caves.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, so it was pretty interesting.
That's wild,
Yeah, it was
man.
great. Yeah, it was just a inner experience. You know?
Yeah.
It's like, wow, you know, and then when you come back, it just, everything is like, you know, gosh, these people are so lucky they can just go to the store and buy some meat other than, you know.
Beating some hermit crabs to death, right?
Yeah, and everything's prepared. I go, geez, these people are so spoiled.
We are spoiled.
Yeah, but you realize, you know, how early man or whatever, what they had to do to survive, how the people were nomads because they're always looking for food, shelter, something warm or whatever. So it's a good realization, you know, a human.
Did you get
realization.
fire on the
Fire?
island? Did you make fire?
Yeah.
You did?
Yeah.
Did you bring a lighter? I would have brought I might have brought a big lighter. Or did you make it a traditional?
No,
You had a Zippo.
I could say all kinds of things because no one was around.
yeah,
you
no
know.
one was there, right?
But
yeah.
I'm a pretty honest guy, so I said, yeah,
Yeah.
I brought some provisions and things.
But you didn't bring any food.
No,
Just water and you
Yeah.
know, some provisions, but not like a
Right.
tent,
no,
nothing
not
like
at
that.
all.
Yeah, so it was a pretty survival experience.
Yeah,
That's pretty cool. Yeah. So would you recommend it? Would you do it again?
yeah. Why not? I mean, I know now, and all these little experiences that you have build more confidence in you, in yourself, to just do other things. Because like doing that, okay, no problem. You know, I can do it. I know. And you just try and do other things, and you know, it's like you get out of your comfort zone, and you jump that fence, and all these doors just open up. You know, it's like a green pasture, and
Yeah.
do all these great things, and that's part of the life. It's a life's of an adventure, you know, and that for me that's living. You know, I mean, maybe to other people it's something else, but for me that's life. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's cool. So last week I was sitting in that chair, and Alec brought up the point that there's a couple different types of experiences out there. There's the
Yeah.
experience that you enjoy in the moment, and then you look back upon it fondly. But then there's an experience that you really do not enjoy in the moment at all. It sucks, but it makes for the best story, and you remember it, and it's so impactful.
Yeah, that's true.
And he brought it up because all the stories I was telling, I was like, yeah, and then I almost fell through the ice, and I was really cold, and
Yeah. No,
and it was
you're
miserable at
absolutely
the
right.
time. So
Yeah.
do you like that? That was a cool story that you just told, right?
Yeah.
Being on that island for a week. But
No,
while
it's
you were
tough.
there, was it miserable? Do
Oh,
you
yeah.
remember it
No,
being?
There's a lot of things I do that are completely. You're miserable. Like I said, you're out of your comfort zone. You know. And yeah, I don't know, but I just overcome it somehow,
Yeah.
like being very cold and, you're all numb, hungry or whatever, but.
You ever think that it might be weird that people like us, adventurers or whatever, are drawn to that? Like some people would think like, oh, I live on a deserted island for a week. Like that seems like it would be awful. I would never want to do that. But you see it and you're like, that sounds cool.
Well, it's a challenge.
It's a challenge.
Yeah, you challenge yourself.
Uh-huh.
So, and you do more experiences and see. The thing is what's your potential?
Yeah.
It's like you can just do a little bit of things and that's it. But how far can you go? How far can you push yourself? It's like I wanted a degree, but I had to work. So I had worked full time and I went to school full time. So for a few years, I only got 3 hours sleep. So I was pushing it. And so I was trying to reach my maximum potential. And so now that I know how far I can go, I can say, yeah, I can stay up all night or whatever, and it's okay. I know I can go to that limit at least, but you gotta,
Gotta know where it is.
yeah, you gotta push yourself and create that challenge. It just, it's what you want, and I just want to do the max because we have this amount of time to do this amount of things. So you want to maximize your potential to do all those things. I mean, I probably won't do all of it, but I'll try to do the max as I can.
Well, you've done a lot of stuff. Tell me about this group of people.
Oh, this is the crew members from our canoe Fafaite. It's a replica Polynesian Voyaging canoe, and we went to Hawaii and back from Tahiti. It took us about
from Tahiti to Hawaii and back.
That's right.
Did you give us a picture of the actual canoe?
I don't know. I don't think so.
No, it says you don't have it.
I should. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's kind of in a rush to put all those things in.
But this was a traditional canoe. It
well,
wasn't like
it's kind of like it was modeled off of this canoe from Aitutaki of the Cook Islands, called Te Tonga. And I mean, it's a long story, but we acquired the mold, and it's got crab cells and everything.
Mm-hmm.
And so we went across the equator, and we had to do ceremonies and everything. We did offerings to the old Polynesian ways.
Mm-hmm.
We made tapa, the bark cloth, and we made offerings.
What's tapa?
Tapa is bark cloth. It's,
bark cloth?
The bark of a branch of maybe mulberry, breadfruit, or banyan tree, and it's pounded, and it creates like a coarse paper, and you can make things with it or write on it.
Is that the canoe? Can we put that up?
Yeah, that's not our canoe, but
it's similar. So it's like a catamaran almost.
But yeah, it's very similar. But geez, was that in there? It's like,
I don't know. So he's fast. He might have gotten it right.
Oh, okay.
But,
Thank you, Andy.
So this is a sail powered. Now,
Yeah.
but do you paddle it? Is there a facility to paddle?
Everything in general, everything's manual. So when you steer, the stern is what we call a hoy, and so we steer manually. It's a long stern like that, and it can get pretty rough sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how long did it take you to get from Tahiti to Hawaii?
Well, it'll take you anywhere from 16 to 21 days or so.
Wow, and you guys are sleeping on the deck, huh? Or can you go down in those holes?
No, we have. We're underneath the holes.
You can get in the hull?
Excuse me, we go in the hull. Yeah.
Okay.
And there's a 16-man crew, and so there's like 4 people on in each shift, and we just rotate. Everybody takes turns on the different duties.
Mm-hmm.
And you're you're helping out, whether you're told to or not, but you're always doing things and keeping busy, fishing for food or cooking the food, steering or just looking out, you know. So,
And how did you navigate this one? The GPS? I mean, I know some of these are going to be GPS.
well, you know, we're training. So sometimes, you know, we have to check and everything, but we say, okay, it's like this. Here's the stars. There's a Southern Cross. There's, you know, Polaris and everything. And so we try to manage ourselves. But of course, we're training, so sometimes we will have a look and see, are we really on course and everything?
Right.
And sometimes, like, you're going through the doldrums or something, and it's just a complete whiteout, and there's no indication whatsoever of where you're at.
Right.
Because everything's white. You're like in an eggshell.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's like you're just teetering and just trying to get some wind in the sail or whatever. And then, yeah, then sometimes you'll see a part of the sky open up and then close up.
Oh, there was
And
a
we
star.
gotta
I don't know what
see,
was there.
You know,
Yeah.
so it's, oh, there's Orion, you know, it's like, oh, we're going the wrong way. So we got to turn around. We would go back to,
So
we're
you
going
didn't have
back to Hawaii. We got to go.
You were training, so you had some stuff, but you you weren't looking at a compass. You weren't looking at the GPS.
In general, we would try to navigate ourselves. Yeah.
So I get a little bit.
We had a master navigator with us.
Okay.
Yeah, but he was sleeping.
Right. So
we had to wake him up. And
he
say,
wakes back
hey.
up. It's like you guys are going the wrong way.
No.
Yeah. That's a long way to Tahiti. If one watch section go
Yeah.
to Hawaii, one section, you know, you go 5 miles towards Hawaii. The next watch section turns you around and goes back.
Yeah. And I remember one time coming back from Hawaii, we hit the trade winds, and we literally just tied down the hoy, and we just took off, and we were going like 10 knots. Just,
Wow.
I mean, not even steering, just going with the wind, you know.
Yeah.
It was just so amazing. And then sometimes you'd see we saw like this, I guess it's a peregrine falcon or something. But a bird of prey. Peregrine, excuse me, yeah. And it was following us for 3 days ago. Oh, that's not the birds that we learned, you know, the seabirds that we learned of.
Yeah.
And it goes, wow. And it followed us and tried to land on our sails and everything, but it was just so shy and timid that it would just come and take off, and then we'd see it hunt all the small birds. And
Oh, wow.
so, you know, you see all kinds of really weird things out at sea.
Yeah.
And one time there were 3 finches, you know, those little birds like that. 3 of them. They were sitting on the rope or the
They're probably,
cord.
thank God I found you guys, you know.
Yeah, it's like, what's that little bird doing way out here? Because, you know, they're about this big, and, you know, they're kind of,
Yeah.
wow. It's just amazing, the nature.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it is. So you see all kinds of strange things out there, and, you know, you'll sometimes, you know, like the earth revolves and you think the ocean is going to be very rough out there, way out at sea, but sometimes it's very calm. And I remember one time, it was so calm that you couldn't even see the horizon, and there was a lot of stars out, and it was like a reflection into the sea because it was so calm. And I remember the canoe just slowly teetering and creaking and everything, and you literally had the impression that you were up in space, sailing up in space. I mean, it was just the most amazing feeling that I never thought I'd ever imagine. I mean, you know, just sailing in space. I mean, that's what it felt like.
That's wild.
Yeah.
So I know a little bit about CellNav, right? I know that, you know, if you can see the North Star, obviously that way is north, right? And the elevation will give you your latitude, right? So if it's yay high, you're at a certain latitude and all that stuff, right?
Right.
But so those are the easy parts, right? So to speak. But you're not doing the sextant or anything.
No.
So how do you know, with the traditional methods, how would you know how far along, like east-west and longitude you were?
Okay, well, We take our readings, sunrise and sunset. We have an imaginary compass with us, and each is about 11.5 degrees or so per pi or house, we call it. And so we measure, we kind of calibrate our hand because everyone has a different size of hand. But from the sunrise, we measure 11 and a half, 11. And that will tell us where we're going. But of course, we calculate in the beginning where we need to go, and then we keep that that heading. And then, but there's a lot of things that happen. I mean, you don't just go straight like that.
Right.
So a lot of times, if we don't see stars that will take us in our direction, we look at the current. We feel the current hitting the side of the hull, and you got to keep that heading. The steersman, you got to keep that heading. So you go until you can see, what you're going for or what star you're going for. It's pretty interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's fascinating. So you would, if you could feel the current, you would just kind of like try to crab into it, so to speak.
Yeah.
So
I mean, if the current is coming at you and you're sailing this way and the current is coming this way, you try to keep it there until you can see where exactly you're going to go.
Right.
Yeah.
That's pretty interesting. That's tough because I've done it with the sextant and stuff.
Yeah. No, it is. I mean, you could be like 200 miles off or so, but considering without instruments, that's still pretty good,
Yeah, but 200 miles, I mean, do you hit the island? Can you see the island at 200 miles? So that's the other question. If you're 200 miles off, what are the indications that like there might be an island? Like,
well, if it's a high mountain, of course, you'll see like cloud cover.
Okay.
And if it's an atoll, which you can't even see, even though it's there, you look at the clouds, and the clouds, the lagoon will reflect like a blue-green. So you look and, oh, there's the atoll right there because this cloud is a little blue-green color. Or you look at the birds flying. The birds, they go out and feed in the morning, and late afternoon they go back to land. So if you see the birds late afternoon going in that direction, oh, that's where land is. Yeah.
So birds, the color of the clouds, all these things. So
the
stars will get you close, but then nature kind of.
You have to recognize nature and look at it and listen, hear and smell. I mean, you can even smell the earth when after it rains.
Yeah.
The island, the earth goes into the ocean, and it's really, your senses just are more vibrant. And it comes alive when you're out there. So,
that's pretty cool.
It is. Yeah, I enjoy it.
Yeah. So, shifting gears a little bit, you got this picture of you on a tall ship.
Okay.
Or is that you?
Yeah, that's me. I had an opportunity to sail on the tall ship Endeavor. It's her HM Bark Endeavor, and it was Captain Cook's first voyage ship that he took when he went through Tahiti and New Zealand. And we were there with our canoe, Fafaite, and we followed the route of Captain Cook. It was the Tuya 250 celebration, 250 years since Cook arrived in New Zealand. And actually, I went on the Endeavor to photograph, but they they put me as a crew member.
Yeah.
It's
they
like,
put you to work, huh?
Yeah.
Oh, you're not going to just get to take pictures the whole time.
Yeah.
Swab that deck.
Yeah, exactly. So I did all the duties. I mean, you're right. Swab the deck, peel the potatoes, climb on the rigging, and there's like 27 square rig sails on
This
there.
is a picture.
Yeah.
Distance, so you can see the sail plan.
Yeah. So you can imagine Cook. He had like, I don't know the exact number of people on board, but there's like 90 or so, 93, 92, I don't know, something like that. And we were like 50. And gosh, I can imagine how they did that.
I think it was rough.
Oh,
it was a rough
really
experience.
really rough because, you know, with the crew and I don't know, I mean, they're not all cadets or anything. They might have been criminals or whatever, you know. But Cook was a pretty interesting sailor.
So the voyage you did, you were recreating his voyage?
We were just following the route, but the main objective.
In the ship, is it the same ship? It's literally.
It's a replica.
Oh, it's a replica. I was like, maybe the same hull, and they kind of refurbished it, or what?
Well, some of the pieces are the same. Yeah. So they told me, but yeah, it's the same way you would steer everything with the wheel, and it's really strange how and the terminology.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's very different than the canoe. I mean, it's opposite what we do, and I was getting kind of confused when I was trying to steer.
And this is you climbing. Look at that! Look at that great shot of you climbing the rigging there.
Yeah, I had to
bringing our flag out.
I had to share, you know, that Adventures Club, everything, you know. But yeah, it was. They put a harness on you, and I'd go up, and then you'd have to bring up the sails, or bring them down, or whatever. You know.
That's pretty neat. You know, it's an interesting thing too, because you went from, you know, I guess native indigenous people's method of traveling to a very colonial way of exploring the same region. So what kind of differences did you see? Because when you're on that square rigger, that's how they colonized those areas, versus how it was originally explored and originally settled was on a canoe.
Right. Well, on the ships, it's more strict. You know, it's more regimented. You know, but the canoe is more feeling. You know, it's like we steer by feeling or whatever, but over there it's like, you know, 10 pegs or whatever.
Eyes on the pinnacle. Yeah.
4 pegs, or I forgot what that terminology was, but you know, it was really different.
Yeah.
So we were like, because we're used to just being kind of loose and, you know, steering everything, but over there it was.
It's about it's about what you'd expect it to be, right?
Yeah. Well, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess you'd have to be. Yeah. During that time.
Well, I mean, it's a different. Yeah, it's a completely different.
We sailed from the north of New Zealand all the way down to the South Island to Picton. It was like 11 days or so.
Oh wow!
But it was a great experience. So it was a highlight actually, because I've never been on a ship like that, at least crewing. And everything. So
that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So tell me about this picture here.
Well, this is another. You know, since I have a passion of Polynesian migration, I believe that some of the voyagers past Polynesia and went to, you know, like Rapa Nui and South America, and these are some of the things that are very similar. This stone totem was from the Tiwanaku civilization, and it looks very, very similar to the Marquesian tiki. And so these are some of the things I'm documenting for our exposition to share about migration and the similarities. You know, like with the sweet potato, that originates in Peru, like maybe 8,000 BC. And there's like 3,000 varieties of the potato there, but it found its way in Polynesia. You know. And also in Chile, they found obsidian from Rapa Nui, and they found skulls that are like Polynesian skulls on one of the islands there. And there's another tribe, Mapuche, the Mapuche tribe, which has very similar Polynesian words, like toki. Toki is like a tool or a sign of a chief. It's like a ads for making a canoe, and they have that toki ura. Ura is red, or kura, and it's kind of like a royal color, so it's a chiefly kind of thing. So they have toki ura or kura in that language there.
Yeah.
It's like, wow, all the way in South America. How does that relate? But it does.
So that's interesting because you mentioned that you saw some stuff that came from the East and wound up in South America, but you also
Right.
saw stuff that definitely originated in South America. That came, so the migration, when we think of migration, we think of like spreading across the Pacific, right? But from what you're saying, it sounded like there was some going back and forth too, right?
Right, right. I mean, sometimes it really surprises me because, you're out at sea, you're actually experiencing it, and you have the modern, the rails and nice material for sails, strong, but they had like pandana sails. And, you hit a squall or something, and those things break or get broken, and how are you going to mend all that stuff out at sea, and it just amazes me how they did that.
Oh yeah.
And even though, you're doing all this sailing and everything, I shake my head, it's like, how did they do that, Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think you going out there and having the experience, it brings you closer to figuring out and kind of feeling how they did that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Right, but also from what it sounds like, you also appreciated like how difficult it must have been.
Oh yeah, oh definitely. I mean, I'm sure many lives were lost, but they did make it and back.
That's crazy.
It's a fascinating story, I think, and that's what motivates me to, trying to find more information and research and everything. And there's a new finding that people from Colombia
Really?
went to Polynesia too. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it's
So now you got to take a trip to Colombia.
Yeah, I guess so.
So tell me about this picture here. Repping the flag again. That's very good.
This is another expedition.
So this was actually a flagged expedition.
Right, and this was the migration of southern Japan.
So
there was just basically a theory how southern Japan was migrated, but the researcher felt that maybe they came from Taiwan and came up the archipelago, the Okinawa prefecture, to the island of Yonaguni, which is right next to Taiwan, but it's part of Japan. And they built a reed boat and tried to paddle and everything. But this point here, this picture is, we're on Taiwan up in the mountain, and we're trying to see Yonaguni. So they think that, maybe they saw an island, made them curious to go find that island.
Yeah.
And then keep going. So, but during that time, there's a lot of haze and everything, so we didn't really see it.
So you didn't see it that day?
But we hiked up there, and but I was on the project to photograph and everything, the expedition, paddling across, on a reed boat.
And a reed boat, huh?
Yeah, well, reed boats, for me, they're lake boats, like in Peru, like in Lake Titicaca. But for the ocean, that's a whole nother thing. The ocean just thrashes the reeds around, and I mean, maybe they've done that, but they've done expeditions with that. I know some have gotten towed back in or whatever. But yeah, it's.
Was that expedition successful? Did they take that reed boat?
Well, they did a couple of tries. They tried a reed boat, then they tried a bamboo boat, and then they were successful with a log boat, or
like a hollowed out?
Yeah, hollowed out tree.
Almost like a canoe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then that was successful, but they're trying to find out What did they use? Okay, if they found an ads, okay, we can use that. But there was nothing like a sale,
Yeah.
so they didn't try it with a sale. But the hard part over there is that you have what's called the Kuroshio current, which I think is like maybe 2 or 3 knots, a constant, and it's pretty strong current. So, you know, sometimes you go against the current and everything. And,
Right.
you know, so yeah, but it was really interesting to be on these islands that very few people have gone on, and
It is
it's just
amazing
beautiful.
that some of these islands are still, I mean, people have been there, we know they're there, but,
Yeah.
you know, you could count a handful of people have
Right.
actually been there. Have you, what's the most remote island you've been to in the Pacific where you can say like, hey, I'm pretty sure only 10 people have been to this island or something like that, or the most off the beaten path, because that's what we're about here, right?
Well, there's more than 10 people or no people or whatever, but one time we left the Solomon Islands, and we hit a squall, and we couldn't avoid it, and our sail ripped. It was so strong, and the closest island was this place called Rennell, Bologna Rennell, and so we went into the bay there, and then after when we looked it up, it was a Polynesian outliner island in the Solomons, which is like, that's part of my, you know, my own research, you know, just trying to go to these Polynesian islands, because there's these outliner islands in Papua New Guinea and also in the Solomons, and we went to one of them, and we never would have gone there to Rennell, but yet there's Polynesian looking people on there, and yeah, it was just
So you call it an
amazing
outliner?
Outliner. They're Polynesian people that live on these islands in a Melanesian area,
So the culture is definitely Polynesian, but now the jurisdiction, the political jurisdiction or whatever,
yeah,
is
well, it's
something else.
basically Melanesian, but there's these little Polynesian islands, you know, and in Papua New Guinea, Solomons, and then as you go across, you know.
So that
really
was
amazing,
that was the most out of the way one, but it was still
Yeah.
populated, right?
Yeah, it was populated. There's villages there and everything.
Did they have like services or
Surfaces.
services like
service.
you know, there's a dock you could get fuel or buy groceries or whatever, or was it?
Well, where we were at, maybe there was, but where we were at, it was just villages. You know.
So when you stopped in, were they pretty helpful or?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm usually the first one off to have a look and
Yeah.
get on the dinghy and explore, take photos, try to meet the people. It's always fun. They show you around. And one time I was in Vanuatu in a place called what's it, mescaline or something, and
Mescaline's a drug.
yeah, okay, there was something else, something that's very similar.
Mescaline's something in Hunter S. Thompson's briefcase, right?
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. Alice in Wonderland or whatever.
Yeah.
You know. But it was a very similar name. But it was a Melanesian area or island. And when you look inside there, it looks like it's all Polynesian because they have outrigger canoes, you know, flower leis, everything. But they're Melanesian people. But all Polynesian ways and everything.
So when you say Melanesian, what can you describe that people group a little bit more?
Melanesian are people who have migrated from Australia down to Papua New Guinea, to Solomons.
Are these white
Fiji,
people, or are these
is
are these
Melanesian.
like?
It's darker skin with
Okay.
hair, you know.
Because when we think of indigenous
Curly hair.
Australians, we think of Aboriginal people.
Okay, Aboriginal.
Is that so a group of Aboriginal people
Well,
migrated?
yeah, I mean, they're one of the oldest cultures, so they slowly migrated down there too.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's interesting. I didn't even know that people group existed.
Yeah.
Huh.
Well, you have, Melanesia, Polynesia, Micronesia, they're all in groups.
Mm-hmm.
But, when you go through all this, selling everything, you see the people, see what they do, it's like a big family, and it's just one big family,
Yeah.
separated by political boundaries.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, so that was my conclusion. It's one big family because we're all separated. Like in Tahiti, it's French. Rapa Nui, it's Chilean. Hawaiian, okay, it's American. New Zealand, the Maori, English.
Mm-hmm.
And
All that's fairly recent, though. I mean, Hawaii wasn't a state,
yeah, that's true,
100 years ago. When did Hawaii become a state? I think it was like, it might have been like the 40s or something.
Yeah.
I mean, it was not ancient history, right?
Right.
So all those political boundaries really got drawn
True.
fairly recently.
Yeah.
I'm sure that the people there.
I mean, some of them are the same peoples, but yet they're different because they put a name on them.
They put a line on a map, right?
Yeah,
They outlined these.
Yeah, like the Cook Island people are the same
Yeah.
as the Tahitians, but we're different because they speak English, but the Tahitians speak French. I mean, they speak their language Tahitian, but and the Cook Islanders they speak it's like a New Zealand Maori, but mixed Tahitian and all that.
So do you speak Tahitian now that you've been there?
A little bit,
Yeah.
here and there, yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. Do we have another picture, Andy, or was that the last one? So what we do at the end, Danny, is we take questions from the chat. So I'm sure that there's some people that have been in this chat that have some questions for you.
Okay.
So if you don't mind, we'd like to field some of those, see what's out there. So what do we have, Andy?
For sure.
Nobody?
Just
Okay, great.
welcome
right, let's get
everyone
up
back
and
to
go.
the chat. It's lovely to see your smiling faces again, and thank you so much for tuning in tonight. Our first question comes from Sinclair, and Sinclair wants to know, did either voyage have a GPS as a backup to navigation?
Well, we're required by law to have electronics. So yes, we had a GPS, we had compass, everything. But a lot of times what we do is we just cover everything up, and then we go.
Yeah. I've done that before. And it's an honor system, like in races.
Sure.
They're like, hey,
Yeah.
keep your GPS off unless it's an emergency, that type of
that's
thing.
a regulation to have, all your
Yeah.
inflatable rafts and your
Oh, yeah.
flares and everything. But we usually,
Try to pretend it's not there. Yeah.
but
No, you're challenging yourself, right? You talked about that.
Absolutely,
You're trying to
yeah.
challenge yourself and
yeah.
figure out what you can do without all that stuff. All right, next question, please.
Next question. What are some things when you're on voyage that you can't live without?
You can't live without. Well, water. You always need your water.
Your camera, right? I think they're.
Oh, for me, yeah, my camera.
Yeah.
If I lose my camera, it's over.
Yeah. Why am I even here?
No, you basically always need water. It's no water, no life.
Yeah.
Period.
So that's why when you talked about being on that island, you did take water.
Yeah.
Did
for
you
sure.
try to find water on your own
Yeah. Well, I
for the
tried
first
to,
couple days? Or?
Tried to, throw rocks at the coconuts and everything, which was kind of unsuccessful. But
Did you climb a coconut tree?
no,
You didn't want to have a broken leg for 7 days?
yeah, there wasn't a medic or
Yeah.
or a clinic there, so I've.
Well, what's his name?
do
Bob Silver's got those stories about climbing coconut trees in
Oh yeah.
downtown LA. All right, next question, please.
Next question is a bit of a two-parter. How many times have you carried an Adventurers Club expedition flag, and would you mind explaining the difference between an expedition flag and a member flag?
It's a good question because the pictures had both, right?
Yeah, I think I was on like 4 expeditions. Expeditions are more organized. It's through sponsorship and things like that. And the members flag is when you go out personally and go out on an adventure, wherever it may be, off the beaten path, non-credit card, so that would be the difference between the expedition flag is a sponsored like National Geographic kind of thing.
Right.
Yeah.
So you've got 4, which is a pretty significant number. We don't give these things out to anybody.
Yeah. Well, I'm an older member, so I don't know how they do it now, but
All
right, next question, please. Let's take a couple more questions.
Next question comes from Larry Stern. Larry wants to know, Danny, when did you win Adventure of the Year? And can you tell us about your adventure in that year?
That's a good question.
Well, I was honored to get Adventure of the Year in the year 2016. And it was voyaging throughout the South Pacific. All the experiences going from Tahiti to Hawaii, back to Rarotonga, Samoa, Fiji, Vanuatu, New Caledonia, Solomon Islands, New Zealand, and then back to Tahiti. So
It's quite a year.
it was a pretty big adventure, yeah. It's very,
Central.
yeah, I'll never forget that.
That's cool.
Yeah. Thanks for that question.
All right. Let's do one more question.
Final question of the night comes from Sinclair. Sinclair, bit of a two-parter again. Do you take any books on your voyage? And if so, which ones? And do you keep a journal on your voyage?
Well, my journal is my photography.
Mm-hmm.
Because anytime I see my photos, I can relate to how I was feeling or what the scene was and everything. So a lot of times you don't feel like writing, when you're out at sea, or because you're moving around, and sometimes when you're writing, you're below or in the whare or the shelter, and things are moving, and sometimes when you try to write when you're out at sea, you get a headache, and it gets really severe sometimes. Even when I'd go into the hut to change batteries or something, you get kind of woozy there.
Yeah.
But then when you're out on deck,
You're fine. Yeah.
But I try to, work on my computer, download the images and everything, and it's like you just kind of gut it out, and then you go back out.
Yeah.
Yeah. So no, nothing written, but my photos are my journal.
And you have a website for all your photos, right?
Well, I have a website. I'm kind of rebuilding it. I'm pretty bad about publicizing myself.
Is it just DaneeHazama.com?
Yeah, that's it. But I'm gonna update it.
Okay.
I think haven't done anything since 2017. But I just
sure
go out
there's
on
quite a bit.
adventures.
Yeah.
And I photograph, and that's my thing.
Yeah.
I don't
You
really.
should talk to Kevin Lee. That guy updates his website like daily.
Oh, wow.
I mean, I'm sure you've been on Kevin Lee's photography webpage.
Right.
He
I'm
puts all his
pretty
stuff
bad
up.
about
It's
that
great.
Stuff. I'm not into like self-promotion.
Yeah.
Just doing it,
That's cool. Well, hey, Danny, thanks for coming by. We appreciate you coming in.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
So next week, for all those members out there, we're having our annual business meeting. We're going to do it live from the club. It's going to be a Zoom meeting, so we won't be having a regular program like this next weekend. So it's going to be the members meeting. So for those of you that aren't members that are watching, thanks for watching. Consider becoming a member of the club, right? How do you become a member of the club?
Yeah.
You do cool stuff and you start hanging out here, and maybe someone invites you. No promises though, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's not just given. It's you got to earn it. You got to earn it, just like anything else. So.
Yeah. So anyway, we're going to be off next week for the annual business meeting.
Okay.
Just a reminder to all our members. Anyway, If you like this, subscribe to our channel, like the video, share it with your friends, post it to Facebook, all that great stuff. Get these stories of adventure out there so people can hear them.
Okay.
All right, we'll see you later.
Thanks, everybody.